Hello to all. My name is Mark van Koppenolle. I'm heading Global Government Affairs for Nokia. I'm really happy to be with you here on the stage today and happy to see hopefully many people connecting. And I think it's true, while 5G is really being rolled out today, 6G is increasingly being talked about. And we are getting many questions about 6G. I mean, what is it about? What is the difference with 5G? Who is leading in this field, what's happening in the research, etc. And therefore, we thought it was an interesting opportunity to have a session dedicated to 6G here and what Nokia is doing. Actually, there are a couple of themes that are going to emerge and that will shape the 6G requirements. And so that's what we will be talking about today. So things like new man-machine interfaces, ubiquitous universal computing distributed among multiple local devices and the cloud, multi-sensory data fusion, creating mixed reality experiences, and also, precision sensing to control the physical world. So all these kind of things we will talk about during this session today. Nokia is also the project leader for Hexa-X, which is the European Commission 6G flagship initiative. And we are working obviously with a strong consortium of European players. So we can highlight that as well during the call. But without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Volker Ziegler, who will be our main speaker today. Volker is from Bell Labs and he's leading 6G research. His presentation will take us about 30 minutes, and afterwards, Leo Bowman, who is heading our Brussels office, will moderate the Q&A and then also make some concluding remarks. So if you have some questions during the presentation from Volker, please put them in the chat box so that we can have the Q&A afterwards. So with that, Volker, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. So indeed, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here today. I'm Volker. I work with the fun part of Nokia, which is Nokia Bell Labs and CTO. And indeed, this is the time to be bold. This is the time to be courageous and come up with a vision for communications in the 2030s. And at the same time, Mark is right. 5G is on at this time, accelerate rollout in all the key markets worldwide. And it's great to see many of our innovations out of Bell Labs now making into standard and into product. And maybe before we look at the 6G vision, let me briefly reflect on what's around the corner with 5G evolution. But then, truly, I'd love to explore with you what 6G might be about, framing the research and the ambition in the right way. This is about boldness and truly making sure we set the floor in the right and most ambitious manner and beyond technology context. So getting started, next slide, please, Lula, please. So 5G evolution is on, and there's many cool technology enablers that we have now out of Bell Labs increasingly translated into product and standard. I don't want to go into details, but I think what is very important is that we have only seen the beginning of the 5G journey, right? And this whole event, of course, is positioned in this ambition as we have, especially here in Europe, so as to make digital transformation, green transformation happen and across industry sectors. So just as a quick level set, 5G evolution is on. We have seen excellent baseline with release 15, both non-standalone and standalone in terms of approach. But what we will still see, and it's around the corner, is really exciting innovations hitting the ground beyond mobile broadband, use case families that really are then centered on ultra reliable and low latency enhancement, especially for the industrial context. You could also think automotive, you could think health. You see some potential areas of application on the very top of the slide. So this is really a very powerful journey that we've just now started. And indeed, as said, we at Nokia Bell Labs, we look forward to really keep driving this transformation, digital innovation, And not just in conjunction with 3GP standard, which of course is a very powerful vehicle. And by the way, there's a lot of value in open collaboration. And this, I think, is also very true for the 6G era coming up. But let's also mention at this stage, there is other very powerful vehicles of open source and co-creation driving and helping us moving 5G evolution forward, including Linux Foundation vehicles such as Linux Foundation Networking Edge AI, but also vehicles of Open RAN, Cloud Native Compute Foundation, just to mention a few. But what I can tell you, no surprise, we at Nokia take active stance and leadership with many of these key initiatives. With this, next slide, please, Lula. So now let's talk vision. Let's talk 2030, and let's maybe set the ground for this from the very big picture, from ambition level for society and mankind at large. And it starts with a vision that we at Nokia Bell Labs have, which is truly about connecting the worlds, right? Connecting the worlds, connecting the physical world, the digital world, and the biological world. And all this then tying into a bold ambition of truly expanding human possibilities, expanding human experience 10 to the power of X. Now, what does the X potentially stand for? And I think it's appropriate to just lean back. This is a unique opportunity driving what will be the next generation of communication networks. So the X, in a broader context, probably one of the dimensions we should start with is truly about value. Now, many of you will say, yeah, value, of course, business value, economic value, very true. But probably also there's one more dimension to this, and we'll come back to this, given that we expect artificial intelligence and machine learning to take such a prominent role in the 6G era, in the 2030s, the next decade. Probably it's a good idea to also think of value alignment, making sure that human values really drive whatever the machines will do once we empower them in this regard. It's all about sense. That's another key dimension of X. Actually, we think it's about creating the sixth sense, if you like. So, like in the notion of a permanent augmented reality overlay almost, and this ties into, and we'll come back to this, one revolutionary technology component of 6G, namely this idea of co-designing networks for both communications and sensing purposes. We'll come back to this. Another dimension of X would be probably intent. So how would you, as a user, achieve goals without explicitly declaring what you want? So that's a whole cool topic. Knowledge, another very big one in terms of value for mankind. So we probably have reached a moment in time, going back to ancient Greece, right? Remember Socrates, Plato? So Socrates was of the opinion that like the only way to share knowledge is by speech, by talking, by discussing. And then Plato said, no, we need to write stuff down. We need to write and share written words, such as even to our day, books and papers and whatnot. Now, with 5G evolution and with 6G in particular, we probably reached a moment in time where we finally transitioned to post-Platonian, in the sense that it's increasingly about moving pictures and images, really, when it comes to knowledge dissemination and thereby enriching human experience and efficiency in very many contexts. Privacy and trust, very important, should not come as an afterthought. As you will see, it's an integral part of our Nokia vision, also from a technology angle. Choice, how do we truly enable the long tail beyond what we can do today? Time, another dimension for the X. It could be about truly giving people time back, so extreme automation. And then the last three X's, also very relevant, tying into dimensions of European Union Green Deal, United Nations sustainability goals, beyond growth and jobs. It's truly about digital inclusion, connecting the unconnected, affordability, as well as aspects of sustainability, right? And energy efficiency, of course, is one key dimension in this regard. Having said all this, how does technology tie in, and what are the big themes? So the big four themes that we can broadly identify on the horizon, so as to also help us frame 6G research, really are about knowledge systems, so novel data information architecture, pervasive leverage of artificial intelligence, machine learning, the ubiquitous compute with another dimension. Lula, it seems the slide has disappeared, at least for me.
Yeah, I have the same issue. Give me one moment and I will get back to you.
Can I try share my screen, Luna? Would that be okay? So we may have lost our facilitator here.
Sorry, Volker, I'm still trying to get that working for you. It's coming up. The slide should be there. There you go.
It's time for 6G. Thank you.
Indeed. Sorry about that. Please carry on.
No, that's fine. Okay. So I think we pretty much summarized the vision and our ambition to really aim high. And I was just talking about some of the technology enabling themes. So what I haven't mentioned yet explicitly, very powerful theme is this whole domain of sensing and actuation, very relevant also for Europe and European industry. And of course, last but not least, the way that this ties into this notion of biological world, how we humans interact with the machines and the networks of the future. Next slide, please. So maybe another piece of level set is really to look at what's happening on the devices side. Let's keep this short and focused. Very exciting. And of course, some of this has already started to happen in the 5G era. What we anticipate to see is really decomposition, disaggregation of devices, increasingly all varieties of textile integrated, flexible wearables, fabrics, including patches on the skin for those who like it, all the way to body implants. And we'll come back to that theme. It's a whole theme of subnetworks, including in-body networks for medical purposes, could be very, very powerful. So that's the device angle. And then moving on, Lula, if we can, to the next slide. This is now, ladies and gentlemen, an interesting way to cluster and structure use case families, like what's really coming up and in terms of exciting scenarios of application that go beyond what 5G can do. As at 5G, we have another 8 years, 10 years to go. A lot of cool innovations still in the pipe, but still, there are some powerful scenarios of usage that go beyond what 5G will be able to do. And we'll come back to the technical requirements in just a moment. But when you look at the use case families broadly, we at Nokia Bell Labs clustered them into 3 areas. Number one, creating, no surprise, new digital worlds. By the way, it starts with a session like this. This is not bad, but it would be a lot better to have like truly immersive, holographic kind of mixed reality telepresence. And by the way, these kind of families, use case families, creating new digital worlds will also be of extreme relevance for a variety of sectors, including industry. Think of mixed reality co-design. Then another very important category of use cases probably is augmenting our intelligence. So learning, new ways of learning from and with machines, scenarios of automatic security, and as already briefly mentioned, this whole idea for medical purposes, very powerful, of in-body monitoring in real time and even actuating some measures as far as needed. Think of patients who suffer from epilepsy, for instance. And then the third bucket, very powerful, no surprise, controlling the automaton. So thinking of domestic robots all the way to remote self-driving scenarios, vehicles, in city environment, in the factory environment, drones and swarms, and controlling these beyond what 5G can do. And by the way, also there, I think a lot of value for society in this. Think of, when you look at domestic robots, think of how would we be able to allow the elderly, especially at this stage of corona epidemics, very obvious advantage if we had that, like have them stay at home conveniently and longer, and make their lives easier by supporting them with domestic robots or families of robots even. Next slide, please. So mixed reality telepresence, already mentioned this. It's the no-brainer, if you like. That's where we get a lot of attention and focus and feedback at this stage. We need to get it right, even though we all hope that the pandemic will be easily, hopefully, overcome now, finally, thanks to vaccine availability. But nonetheless, immersive telepresence kind of scenario, holodeck kind of scenarios are very powerful. And for the engineers, a lot of fun, because we have a lot of interesting, cool ideas how to really optimize networks in a way that we would fully focus on stream-based architecture, use human gesture for control, tying into the theme of spatial computing, as well as tackling not just challenges, opportunities for more bandwidth, but also very extreme demand for synchronization. Next slide, please. So this is one of my favorites. I'm based here. I used to say I'm based out here. I'm based out of a suitcase. No, it's really based out of home office in Munich. But what I can tell you here in Germany, and that's true in many European countries, and it's relevant for many countries worldwide, of course, there's a whole shift that we can help bring about in productivity, and the way we really design across industries, the way we collaborate, and not just in factories, but in a variety of sectoral contexts. So these are scenarios of mixed reality co-design, where it's all about a remote collaboration, machine-machine, but also machine-human, high resolution and precision, and ultimately, if you like, reinventing the value chains of sort, and linking that into a haptic experience, low latency interactions on the job floor, if you like. Next slide. So automatic security, another very powerful one, and of course we could go on for the next hours with all kinds of scenarios, but security could be another interesting application, use case, family. Why? Because it ties into one of the prominent iconic themes associated with 6G, namely this idea of creating a sixth sense, the idea of designing networks, co-designing them, not just for communications, but also for sensing. But of course, and Mark, you mentioned this up front, it also ties then into leveraging a variety of other sensors, all of this in real time, including cameras, and of course, with the appropriate vehicles of privacy in place. Think of powerful mechanisms also associated, I think, with the 6G era, such as federated learning. So we have a lot of cool ideas how to make that happen. And that is, I think, also a very useful scenario of application. Next slide, please. So with this, we've come to the point where, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to give you a brief glimpse at technology. So what are the 6 key technologies for 6G? 6 key technologies for 6G. We broadly clustered these into AI/ML for air interface. Maybe we can briefly look at this jointly in just a moment. The idea here is to make this truly pervasive, right? So with 5G already, we do apply AI/ML very successfully here at Bell Labs. We've been pioneering some of this for a number of years now. Like optimizing beamforming, optimizing the way we schedule packets over the interface. But what we now have in mind for the 6G era is truly the idea to have a comprehensive, fully integrated framework, AI/ML framework, to help us design, flexibly adjust their interface. New spectrum technologies, that's another big one. It, of course, ties into one of the themes that have gotten a lot of attention in the public's mind, probably for the right reasons, namely leveraging spectrum 100 gigahertz and above, sub-terahertz, as some folks call it. That then opens up a whole range of cool engineering questions, but also, to say this, still finding ways to make better use of spectrum in the lower bands. So that is another dimension we also need, and it's relevant. The network as a sensor topic, I already highlighted it, then ties into probably another key dimension of change and transformation, which is all about architecture. So ultimately, 6G era will be fully softwareized, right? So what we today differentiate RAN and core, like for the upper layers of the radio stack and above, it'll be all seamless. We have a number of cool ideas as to how to make that happen, including ideas of cloud capability discovery, and of course, specialized networks, including in-body subnetworks, as mentioned earlier. Extreme connectivity. This now is very important too, because for specialized cases, we clearly envision to push the envelope, go beyond what 5G can do in performance parameters such as, of course, also throughput and latency, as well as reliability. And last but not least, a lot of cool innovation that we want to move forward as an integral part of the 6G technology and architectural ambition. Framing research at this stage is really security and trust. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is a quick look at current state, sort of like the evolution happening with 5G, and you see a lot of cool stuff already happening, so as to really optimize variety of problems, opportunities to improve, all the way from anomaly detection slice to deployment optimization and load balancing. Already mentioned this, but summarizing, most of this is kind of really point solutions. So the opportunity on the next slide, please, Lula, is truly to go integrated framework, as I already said. And this is where we would then find ways to really optimize by means of end-to-end learning, not just techie parameters like waveform pilot structure and the control signaling piece, but we even also optimize in as a function of traffic pattern and hardware limitations as they actually exist in the respective implementation or radio unit. Next slide, please. So is this real? Well, it's all about research. Okay, let's be clear, another 5 years, and I flashed the timeline in just a moment. But it's real in the sense that we at Nokia Bell Labs have started to engage in designing, coming up with the first prototypes. What you see here is kind of a transceiver chip, D-band, 140 gigahertz, is kind of one of the sweet spots. And it's a lot of fun at this stage. Why? Because you can really break new ground, and we do, in terms of very basic questions of RFIC transceiver design, but then also what is the optimum waveform, especially once you do co-design with sensing. Come back to this. The output power, energy efficiency piece is an interesting one, as well as how do you really optimize antenna arrays and channel modeling. So summarizing, pretty cool ambition and a lot of fun at this time to answer some of these questions. And by the way, this not mentioned on the slide, this also includes new materials, right? Part of our thinking is that probably some of this will happen on new substrates like glass substrate, as an example. Next slide. Yeah, and this is an important one. Why? Because many folks think that 6G is like a sub-terahertz only, 100 gigahertz and above only. Of course not. I think it'll also matter to get more value out of the existing spectrum. We keep pushing the envelope in this sense, and obviously one candidate theme that we need to explore more really is cognitive spectrum management and usage. And this, by the way, then also ties into maybe smart ways of managing the the scarce resource of spectrum for the future in the best interest of society as we serve it, and across use case families from media entertainment all the way to automotive and industrial. Next slide, please. Another very powerful key enabler really is a massive MIMO, so multiple input, multiple output challenge. And what you indicatively see shown here is it's like this idea of truly having very large arrays and conformal with surface. And that then creates a whole range of options in terms of flexibility, also efficiency gain. And when you look at the form factor, it's cool. By the way, from an array perspective, we've done this for many years, right? We've had arrays integrated like with airplanes surface. So that part has been, I think, already coming along for a while. But what's really new now is to put this into context with new chipsets and really the spatial dimension of multiplexing efficiency, and then also the spatial dimension of sensing, by the way. So this then leads you into very advanced concepts of distributed MIMO and going hand in hand with the massive MIMO opportunity. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is one of the favorite dimensions of research. I think why? Because it goes clearly for everybody intuitively to understand. It goes beyond what 5G can do. It's about 6G network creating a sixth sense. So co-designing networks for both communications and sensing purposes. And then this ties into a variety of fun research questions like what is the optimum waveform, right? If you go frequency modulated continuous wave, FMCW, yeah, that's what you want to do with radar, but not so suitable for data transmission. The other way around, OFDM wouldn't allow you to do radar things. So what we end up with really probably are scenarios of smart multiplexing, smart resource allocation as a function of time or frequency. So as you can tell, a lot of fun questions to be answered by radio engineers, like at Nokia Bell Labs, for instance, in Stuttgart. And we will keep pushing the envelope in this regard. Next slide, please. Yeah, and with this, ladies and gentlemen, and Mark at his opening, he already mentioned that we wanted to also give you a quick update as to what is it that we actually do in the European context. Nokia, one of the prominent market leaders with 5G and 6G research now coming up based out of Espoo in Finland. So it's great to see, first of all, that we do have this environment of public-private sector cooperation. Right, it's a strength 5G PPP from what I'm hearing from all the key stakeholders, definitely also from a Nokia perspective. Great story of success, joint innovation, and moving the needle also in our joint European interest. And in this regard, by the way, it's great news that the European Commission just now adopted the legislative proposal on smart networks and services. And what I wanted to share with you as part of this breakout session really is the fact that we have a very powerful project going, a flagship project still under the Horizon 2020 umbrella. It's called HEXA-X. HEX stands for the unknown, the explorative. So European Union 6G flagship project for the networks of the 2030s. And I'm happy to share with you all that Nokia, jointly with 20-odd consortium members, we now have successfully kicked off the project early this year. A lot of fun, and I'll share with you who the other consortium members are in just a minute. But what you also see on this slide is very important in terms of timeline, just to put things into perspective. So 6G is on in the sense of 6G research is on. Let's be very clear, right? This is the time to be bold, to frame the right questions. How do we want to create value for society, industry, consumers, and citizens in the European Union and worldwide? But then in terms of timeline, it'll be another couple of years until we really move to what we call dissemination stage, standardization in particular. We anticipate this to start like 24, 25 timeframe at the earliest, and then only 2028, 2030 probably we'll see early adoption and commercialization coming up, right? So that's very important for everyone to be aware of. Why? Because we still have so much potential with 5G evolution, and we want to make sure we get that fully tapped. All of this is happening against three massive driving forces in the bigger picture, and I think we broadly reflected on these already implicitly, but maybe it's a good idea to just make this explicit as well. So it's about technology push, that's what we already discussed somewhat, but then it's also about society pull. So it's about the topics that really are important to us, to the folks living in Europe, to me certainly. And there's a theme beyond technology push and society pull, which is also prominent in a constructive way, and it's important. It's all about technology sovereignty, therefore also making sure that we in Europe find ways to strengthen what we are good at and beyond research. Strengthen what we are good at, tying into the value system and the whole context of society as we enjoy and the values associated with it. Next slide, please. Yeah, this then leads me to just briefly sharing a little bit more on what the HEXA-X project is about in terms of substance. Also, what you see on the right-hand side is like the ambition you see this notion of connecting the worlds. Very powerful theme. It's also find its way into the flagship, no surprise. And then what we did in the flagship project, and I happen to be a member of the management team, as said, a lot of fun. We framed the research domains broadly into 6. So going around the key themes here, it starts with extreme experience. So that tying into extreme enablers such as connectivity, related, latency related, so forth, trustworthiness, connecting intelligence, network of networks, so the whole notion of subnetworks, very important. And then, of course, the topic, the framing area of sustainability aspects, including energy efficiency, and last but not least, global service coverage is another big one that I think we need to smartly tackle in this project. And as said, we've come a long way with this. We have now identified key technology enablers, starting from the framing questions, and technology enablers kind of broadly clustered into 3 areas. New radio access technologies is a big one. And it's not just about high frequencies, it's not just about communications, it's also prominently about high resolution sensing, as already mentioned, and localization and actuation. In conjunction with this, another key area of technology enablers really is about connected intelligence, the pervasive role of AI/ML. We discussed the AI interface piece already briefly. And then there's the whole architectural context, which is also very exciting, taking this to the era of 6G in conjunction with dynamic compatibility, cloud capability discovery, and network disaggregation. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is to give you a quick view on who is HexaX. And as said, Nokia delighted to serve and lead the consortium, and project management role is with Nokia. Then we have prominent partners, including Ericsson, another European heavyweight, and it's great to see then the excellent number of operators, the ones who still engage in research, as well as industry players, and of course academia, leading universities. So this really, I think, is a powerful setup to not only frame the questions, but also come up with first conceptual ideas, maybe even early demos and trials to the degree it's feasible, like what 6G could ultimately be about. And again, thanks to European Union 5GAP, I think this is a powerful instrument for us to lead and in line with European ambitions of technology sovereignty also. Next slide. Yeah, global context, just briefly, so that we have a couple of minutes also for Q&A. So this, of course, is not happening in empty space. It's not just Europe engaging. We do have a variety of initiatives on 6G research in many key regions of the world, including the United States, China, Japan, Korea, and also India. I think for us in Nokia, of course, we are committed to contribute and lead. At the same time, I think this is also the time to make sure we continue what has made this industry particularly successful in the past, namely we continue to work in open, collaborative fashion, and in the best interest serving society worldwide, avoid fragmentation to the degree we can. And in this regard, again, the EU Horizon 2020 and now the Horizon Europe Research SNS program coming up, they will be extremely powerful and helpful in helping us do that. Next slide. So with this, I'm at the end of my speech, and I would move to Q&A. Just for those interested to probe further, find out more, here's some webpage resources that you can, if you wish, look at and check out. Other than that, thank you very much. And with this, back over to Leo for Q&A.
Yes, thanks, Volker, for your passionate and insightful presentation. Nice job that you have to be at the heart of Nokia Bell Labs, where exciting things are really happening. And I'm delighted to say that quite a number of questions have already come in. So let's start perhaps with a spectrum. So there's a question from Deepak from the Indian Council for Research on International Economic Relations, who's asking which spectrum bands could be relevant for or prime candidates for 6G.
Yeah, it's a great question. That's why when you give a close look at the timeline, right, we have deliberately also included, there was little, very small icons, so maybe it was hard to see them, but WRC, spectrum allocation, and how we globally manage and allocate spectrum also going forward is a very relevant factor to make 6G happen ultimately. When it comes to spectrum relevance, I guess what's new is that we need to tackle the new bands of potential relevance for 6G, the ones 100 gigahertz and above. But then let's be clear, I think there's a lot of opportunity also ultimately. Again, we're talking commercial launch 2028, 2030 timeframe, ultimately also for reforming of existing spectrum. So this should also be part of what we need to have in mind. And it's important that we also find ways to then do that as an industry.
Thank you. And then we have two questions regarding time to market and regarding availability of 6G end user devices. So we know that, of course, 3G to 4G was very much supply driven and the demand was immediately there. In 5G, it was more co-development and looking at the specific needs of users. I guess in 6G, there needs to be an even stronger involvement of verticals pretty much from the beginning. So are they already formulating demands and needs for them? Linked to that, what time to market do you expect? Can it be faster than with 5G? Or the other cycles, 3G, the typical 10-year cycles? That question came from Audrey, Qualcomm, so also a company that highly contributed to 5G. And then, as I said, yes, the 6G end user devices, will they be developed faster or also only bit by bit?
I think it's a great question because, first of all, the question is spot on because standard and what infrastructure solution providers like Nokia do is one part, but we do need chipset and devices. So it's a brilliant question. Now, there is obviously one gentleman or a lady from Qualcomm who asked the question on device availability. I think they can answer that question better than I can. But I think the right answer really is, that ties into another question you had. There was three of them. So the first one is about industry involvement. And what I can say, and this is great news, it's encouraging, it's the way it should be. So what I can tell you is, and that's also what we learn, like in the XX context from advisory group members from industry. So European industry players who engage very early on in 6G, they have very clear view as to why they need 6G and what they would potentially need it for. And so that's, I think, fundamental. And we have come, Leo, some way with this, ladies and gentlemen, also with 5G already. When you look at SA requirement, we've gone up to like 40% of requirements that now come from enterprise and verticals compared to less than 20% 2 or 3 years ago. So we've come a long way, but with 6G, this will be even more important. Why? Because 6G will be about sub-networks and high performance parameters that really will unlock a lot of value for enterprise and verticals in particular.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then a question here from the satellite business. So will 6G do a better job in trying to include into protocols all communication technologies out there in order to provide the best solution to the users?
Well, that's a great question again. I think it needs to be part of our ambition, right? I mean, ultimately, what we would love to see is like you use, I mean, today we have smartphones, whatever the form factor is, 2030 and beyond, but let's just smartphone for a reference point. Use the smartphone you have even to access like satellite coverage. Why not? That would be part of the vision. Is that realistic in what time frame? I think there's value in this, so we need to explore it. And when you look at what's in the pipe, release 17, 18 with 5G, we already come some way with this, but with 6G probably we can discuss even more full integration, scenarios of full integration in that sense. And it'll be powerful because it ties into this very fundamental value ambition that we have of connecting the unconnected, right? Satellite is an excellent complementary technology, and therefore it makes a lot of sense to engage in this regard.
And then there's another question coming in right now, perhaps the last one we can take, or I could combine it perhaps with one more. The success of 5G has been the close cooperation between researchers and organizations from countries, METIS, 5G, PPP. How do you see this collaboration moving forward? How engaged are we also in other parts of the world, China, South Korea, Japan, and the USA?
Yeah, so if the question is to Nokia, the answer is yes, we are engaged in other parts of the world. But then when you look back at what we did well out of Europe, and thanks to European Commission support, METIS is an excellent reference point, and Hexa-X is the METIS for 6G, right? So in this sense, I think we are on the right track, but not in the sense of like compromising an open collaboration. I think especially in research, it is about pre-competitive exchange and making sure we frame the right questions for research and then find the best possible answer. I think that's what research is about. And that's the opportunity we all have, so as to get the next generation of networks, communications for the 2030s, get 6G era right.
Very good. So we are about to close. There's not much time left. So perhaps a very short summary. 3G to 4G was to enhance the communication experience of people or individuals. 5G is to truly enable industrial and business-to-business applications according to the needs in terms of latency, reliability, security, etc. And now 6G kind of brings it all together. It is about empowering people in industrial and professional settings with AI, machine learning, augmented and mixed reality, as we have heard from Volker. And we have great research programs just being kicked off, as we heard, with Hexa-X, and then also the joint undertaking of smart networks and services on 6G, which has been launched yesterday by the Commission with 900 million, funding. So that is great. Volker, if you have one last greeting or concluding remark of yourself, and then we have to close.
Yeah, thank you, Leo. So thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending this session. I think this is exciting. It's all about opportunity. We need to be bold and dare to be bold at this time, especially out of Europe. I think so. This is the time to be visionary and frame 6G research so that we really create value for the 2030s from what is a general purpose technology, communications in the 2030s. Enabling a variety of other sectors and contributing to goals of sustainability and growth, not just here in Europe, but worldwide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Volker, and thanks to everybody for attending, and have a nice day.